it gives them so many opportunities to try, allows them to fail in a safe environment, but it allows them to learn from their failure to do things better. The big thing is allow them to follow their passions. Design and technology, it's a subject that will challenge them beyond what they thought they were capable of.
Well, welcome to another episode of Your School Journey. Today we're sitting down with Phil Murdoch. He is a design technology teacher of over 20 years and also host of the Tattoo Teacher podcast. Welcome to the podcast today, Phil.
G'day, Mal. Thanks for having me on.
It's great to have you on. And probably the first thing I'd want to know is design technology. We've got a podcast to parents. Our listeners are going to want to know, what is design technology? They may have seen it around the place. What can you tell us about it?
Well, design technology, it's changed over the years. Some of the parents may know it as industrial arts, manual arts, techniques, woodwork, metalwork. Like I said, it's changed over the years, but design technology encompasses mixed materials, resistant materials, laser cutting, 3D printing, food technology, textiles technology. So it's all encompassing of what used to be very individual subjects.
How do you, as a teacher, that maybe you started off with woodwork and metalwork, how do you kind of move with the times with that kind of stuff?
It's a challenge. It requires time, it requires effort, and it requires the growth mindset to want to do better, to be better for your students, to allow them the best experience in the classroom.
In terms of the kids, you're in an environment where obviously years ago it was woodwork and metalwork. Have you seen the kinds of kids that decide that they want to take these subjects change over time? What do you see them getting out of these subjects?
A lot of the kids have changed. It used to be very much we're just attracting the trade kids, the ones who want to do the trade. And I'm all for that. Like, if you want to do a trade, parents, if your kids want to do a trade, get them out there, let them do it. They will get that much experience, growth, opportunity from that. I highly recommend. But the landscape has changed. It's allowing kids who want to not necessarily be in a trade, but they might want to be in a paraprofessional experience. They might want to do construction management. They might want to do business management. So they want to know how different things work. They want to go into engineering, even food technology. They want to be a chef. So there's all these things that it gives them so many opportunities to try, to experience, but also it allows them. The great thing is, because they're just experiencing and learning, it allows them to fail in a safe environment, but it allows them to learn from their failure to do things better.
What kind of projects do you take on in a modern day design technology class?
Oh, look, we still take on some of the traditional ones, the old pencil boxes. Often we'll put a different spin on it, but the skills that we want them to learn are just as important. So it's, measuring, marking out, safety, cutting, assembly, production management, so time management. But we also go into 3D printing, laser cutting. With my Year 10s, currently we're running a cafe-based project. So they're learning all the skills to run or operate in a cafe.
So you mentioned 3D printing and laser cutting. I imagine there's some people out there saying, hey, these are great technologies, I've heard about them, but what kind of activities can be done with these machines? Like what is 3D printing enabling us to do now?
3D printing is enabling students to have the opportunity to do something that wasn't possible with traditional materials as such. They want to make the really organic shapes. They want to have the round corner that shouldn't be there. They want to have just a carved in, a concave shape that they couldn't do otherwise without tremendous amount of time, tools, and risk to the project. It allows them to be more creative. So with some of the projects that we've done, one of the ones that my students have loved in the past is they make a Bluetooth speaker. So they model it on CAD, and then they're able to 3D print these shapes with all the various positions for the speakers, for the circuit board, for the power board, so everything like that. So
I was about to ask you before that you might use Word to do a printout of a document somewhere, but with 3D printing, are there other, you mentioned CAD before, are there other skills that they need to develop, other software programs that they use that, parents might hear about?
I mean, CAD's the big one. And I mean, CAD is a generic term. So it's computer aided design, computer aided drawing, depends who you're talking to. But they can use tools as Onshape, Tinkercad, SketchUp too. We've experienced professional tools that have been given to students such as CATIA, Solid Edge, SolidWorks. So it's giving them experience with tools that are actually out in industry.
That is excellent. So you mentioned earlier on as well the kind of failing forward, if you like, that the students do. What kind of other skills are they learning in these type of subjects?
They're learning creativity. They're learning what they're actually capable of. So they're building self-confidence, because one of the things that I often do, because kids, nowadays they just want to know, how do I get a good grade? How do I get the A? How do I get the, whatever it is? And, we have to, as teachers, we have to mark subjects. That's school, that's life, unfortunately. But what I do is with the kids, before I give them the grade, I ask them a couple of questions when they've completed the project. And it's like, are you excited to take this home? Did you think you could do this before you started? And if you had to start this project again, could you do it better? And it makes them think, it makes them evaluate, it gives them critical thinking skills, it gives them the ability to look in, but also evaluate the process that they've done, so that when they move forward, they can take those skills, whether they, sort of almost tricking them into learning new skills.
So you've also mentioned creativity a lot in your conversation here, and I'm wondering, are there any skills, are there any techniques that you use to kind of develop creativity in young people?
I do a lot of like sketching, drawing, modeling. They want to be perfect. Students want to be perfect. A big thing that we've had over time is, you have a kindergarten kid or a prep kid, and, the sky's purple and the tree's brown and the ocean's red. They don't care. They're just having fun. They're just colouring in and they're just doing things because it's creative. And slowly, as they move through school, you've got to colour in the lines. You've got to do all this sort of stuff. So creativity almost is pushed to one side for perfection. And so when they get into design and technology and the creative subjects, they want to know how to make something perfect, but it's about learning how to be imperfect and just pushing the boundaries of their thought because that's where creativity really flourishes, when they struggle to do something, but it's in that imperfection or perceived failure sometimes is where the best projects come from.
So I've heard a lot about processes like design thinking. Do you do much of that in these kind of subjects, and what is that about?
So design thinking is, depending on who you talk to, so design thinking, the design process, there's been various iterations now. IDEO, the IDEO school came up, one of their lecturers came up with the design thinking process as such. But we do bring it in. So we talk about empathy. So who are you designing for? Why are you designing it? What's the thought process? So you're trying to get them to look at someone else's perspective, defining. So what are you actually doing? So how can you actually tell me, how do you communicate what you're actually wanting to do? Refining. So how do you make it better? You've done this. How do you bring it in? How do you make it in a way that is achievable in the time frame that you have? I'm trying to think of the other one. So the ideation. So what is possible? And then we bring in divergent and convergent thinking into it. So it's like, hey, the sky's the limit. Now let's bring it back in. All right. So let's getting them to really dive into that divergent thinking first, to actually discover what the problem is, or what the need is, or what the want is, before they even try and solve the problem.
So there's a much more deeper, more in-depth process that's what you're saying. There's more in-depth processes that are going on, rather than I'm just making a box.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. It's getting them to understand why the box is being made, or how the box is being made, or why it's being made in the way it is. because what's the need for it? How can you make it better? How do you make it suit your environment? How do you make it suit the person that you're giving it to?
So in these kind of areas, there's a lot of buzzwords that go around, and one of them, of course, you are well aware of is STEM. So you have spoken about a lot of activities, engineering, for instance, and a lot of the technologies. What's your take on STEM, and how does that kind of fit within this design technologies framework?
Well, look, STEM is a new term, and look, it definitely has its benefits. It's allowed students and children who normally wouldn't get a hold of these more practical engineering-based or technology-based subjects. It's given them an opportunity, especially the girls. They've been able to go, oh, it's not just woodwork. It's I can do all these sort of things. But STEM is, when you break it down, especially for design technology teachers who have been around for a while, that's what we've always done, because we look at materials. So they've got to break down the science. Is that the best material? Technology, unfortunately, nowadays, technology is just seen as computer-based, so just coding or things like that. But technology is, in its most simplest form, is, in our workshop is a pencil. We don't just, how do you get a line down there? Someone's come up with something from, even that, they've moved from lead to graphite to make it safe. So engineering is really putting the science, the theories, into a practical application. So it's making it work. It's making a theory work, or trying a theory in a way, and even if it doesn't work, refining that. And then math, well, that's in everything. How are your measurement skills? How are your volume skills? What are your costings? So it's something that design technology teachers have always done. But I understand the push for STEAM in its various applications.
So changing gears now, what would you say to parents who, they've got their kids, maybe they're showing an interest and they're showing some kind of creativity, maybe they're not. What would you say to parents about the benefits of getting involved in subjects like technologies?
It gives them skills that they wouldn't normally have opportunities. I mean, back in the day, there used to be a shed. There used to be, grandpa had a farm, or, uncle, they had these opportunities just to go and tinker. And unfortunately, just, with life and the business, that's not always an opportunity. And not everyone has those wants to actually do that. I mean, me, I've got a messy workshop and my kids have always watched me do stuff. But for parents, give them the opportunity. It can spark a fire in them that maybe they won't take it as a vocation, but it'll give them a passion that they can do to relax them, that they get enjoyment from. And some of these young kids, the entrepreneurial skills that they can build from this is just amazing. It gives them the ability to be creative thinkers. It puts them in a position of uncomfortability because they're working in an environment that is not normal for them. So it pushes them, it builds resilience in them, in the sense that they didn't think they could do something. Then when the project's finished, they can actually look back, because resilience isn't built in the moment, it's afterwards when you look back. And it's a bunch of fun. It's fun to do stuff with your hands. You look back and you can go, oh, I've created that. I mean, I've still got projects floating around that I made in high school. Not good, but, it's still one of those things where I go, oh, I learned that. Oh, and it's just that opportunity. I mean, I had a student years and years ago when I was back in Sydney. Now, this was a very passionate student, very highly academic student. He went on to be a doctor, very successful. But then years later down the track, he's just gone, I'm sick of this doctor and stuff. And he had the opportunity because he had the means and opportunity to do that. But he went back to woodwork because he enjoyed it in school. So it's not necessarily something they're going to maybe take off for a living, but it's something that they can return to.
Do you find that there's a majority of boys in this subject, or are you starting to see more and more of a balance of boys and girls taking them?
Oh, it's year to year, class to class, but historically, yeah, it's been a male-dominated subject, because boys don't want to sit down. They want to do stuff. They want to move around. They want to just do stuff with their hands. That's just how they're wired, stereotypically. But more and more girls are finding that the subject is more attractive because it's not just looking at wood or metal. It's not that dirty, dusty workshop. But also societally, women are wanting to be in trades, in traditionally male-dominated subjects or industries, and I've found that a lot of the time when I have the young girls and young women as they get into the senior years, actually really thrive in the subject and actually at times just take the boys to task because they bring an attention to detail. They want to make sure that their work is of a high standard. Boys just generally want to get stuff done and get it over and done with. What's next? But if you look, I know just off I have no association with them, but, like a company like Future Lady Tradies, they are really pushing forward for these young women to break into it. I've had a number of girls who have gone from design and technology into architecture, into working in automotive, going into the mining industry. So that shift is happening across the board. And if there are any like girls interested, don't be intimidated by the boys. Just come in and do your best, and you'll find your place.
Have you found that there's, I guess, different tiers in the design technologies as well? As they go through, they might do a general design technologies class, but then as they progress through school, we're looking at engineering and we're looking at those careers. You mentioned mining as well, which are quite lucrative careers. What do you say to parents or students about pursuing those kind of careers?
I would say do it. If your child has an interest in something, like encourage it, find out why, find out what is the drive behind it. And there are so many opportunities, there's so many pathways these days. I mentioned apprenticeships before, and a lot of people go, oh, but it's an apprenticeship, it's not going to get you anywhere. Well, I mean, I did an apprenticeship when I left school, and it set me up for my career. I then went on to do a couple of degrees. I've been teaching for 20 plus years. But without that trade, I wouldn't have the skills that I have in the classroom. I wouldn't have the experiences that I can share with the students. But yeah, there are lucrative industries. And I mean, I know one student, a friend of ours, his son, he wants to go into construction management. He wants to be at the sort of the top tier of that industry. However, he's got the grades for it. He's already got into uni, before he's even finished school, like so many kids do now. But he's going to do an apprenticeship first because he wants to know how the industry works. He wants to know what happens on the ground. So he's learning and getting a real understanding of how the industry works, and then he can take that 4 years of training and knowledge and skill, and go into the tertiary, the university system, and then get the qualifications he needs to get to where he wants to go. So,
do you ever notice any drive or any characteristics in students? You might see them in junior school or as they're working up through the grades, and you're like, you know what, that person looks like that they could go into engineering and they'll go places. You kind of pick up on that at all? What characteristics do you see in those students?
A lot of them are what some teachers would call troublemakers. They want to challenge the system. They want to explore things. They want to see how things break, how things are put together. They have just they're unsettled in a traditional classroom, but then in it could be food tech, it could be textiles, it could be 3D printing, whatever it might be. But they all of a sudden they sit and they just get that laser focus, and then that's their passion, and it's tricking them into going, hey, and then you bring the math into it, or then you bring the English, the written communication into it, because you've got to be able to do these things. You've got to have these extra skills. It's one thing to be able to make and do well, but you've also got to be creative. And entrepreneurs, if they want to do it, like, they're great subjects to get into because you find out how things work.
So Australia's not really keeping up with the need for STEM. That's been in some recent government reports. What do you think that we can do to kind of encourage that or boost that in our schools? What can parents do to help boost that enthusiasm in their children?
Um, oh, look, it's a tough one because sometimes it has to do with preconceived ideas and perspective of what these subjects once were. But I mean, Australia is a primary industry country. We have, from farming to mining to gas to oil, manufacturing. Unfortunately, we lost a lot of that. But it's an industry and it's a space where I guess money can be made. And sometimes, we look at the trades. They're crying out for tradesmen and women. And I mean, I know I read an article a while ago, a couple of weeks ago, and it said, if you're starting from nothing at the moment, like a student starting from nothing, get a trade, get a practical job, because within the next 5 or 10 years, you're going to be earning more than doctors are, for a whole range of reasons. But I've got a real passion for hands-on, for practical things, because we need people. There's a lot of talk about AI and things like that taking over. And look, that's a discussion for another time. But the opportunities that come from STEAM even in rocketry, like there's a number of Australian companies local to the Gold Coast that are making huge inroads into space travel. And that used to be just the American market or just the Russian market, but now it's here in our backyard, and we're making huge inroads, and they want students involved. They have all these opportunities for experiences. The students can go and experience how that works. So, yeah, but we've got to look at STEM or STEAM in other ways, not just looking at whether it's science. Okay, or technology, or you can't combine them all, but each has its own importance, and they've got to be looked at in that way.
So as a parent wanting to encourage their child to get involved in different areas of design technologies in STEM, what kind of things could you provide us with or share with us that they could maybe do at home? Are there any activities? Maybe they're in junior school and there might be some things that they can do to encourage them or inspire them.
The amazing thing is there's so many great products out there now. I mean, Lego Education has some great things. I even just give them a box of Lego. Just put them down. Don't give them any instructions. Just put them down with a big tub of Lego and let them be creative. Let them just sit there and almost get bored, because boredom is necessary for creativity. So it's really important that they try things. There's coding clubs. There's, if you've got the opportunity, take them down to the local men's shed and let them see what can be done. Just as a tinker thing, buy them those, cheap engineering products off Amazon, or stay away from Temu, but. But there's lots of things that can be built where they can actually learn about a whole range of different things. If they're interested in automotives, there's, you can buy these build your own little engine kits, or you can buy the the air powered cars. You can buy, bottle rockets. There's so many things out there. They've just got to find that passion and let them experience a whole range of things. They might not like one thing, but it gives them the opportunity to go, hey, I don't like that. But that starts to narrow the focus to what they actually will like.
Are there any final words you want to share with our parent community?
So many, but the big thing is allow them to follow their passions. Design and technologies, it's a subject that will challenge them beyond what they thought they were capable of. It will give them an opportunity to fail in a safe environment, but fail forward. It will give them skills, opportunities that maybe they didn't think were possible. And hopefully they'll have a lot of fun doing it.
Brilliant, Phil. Thank you. It's been so great chatting with you today.
Thanks, Mel. Appreciate your time.